It was just before dawn when something unusual lit up the dark sky over the northern part of Earth. The air was cold, and a thick fog covered the forests and empty plains below. Most people were still asleep when radar stations around the world started picking up an unknown object entering Earth's atmosphere at incredible speed. It didn't match any known satellite or aircraft. For a few minutes, the object moved silently, then it slowed down and vanished from radar completely. In a small Siberian village, miles away from any big city, the night suddenly turned bright as day. A glowing streak crossed the sky, followed by a deep rumble that shook the ground. Dogs barked, windows rattled, and a distant explosion echoed through the mountains. Then everything went quiet again. People stepped outside, confused and frightened. Some thought it was a meteor. Others whispered that it might be something else, something from beyond this world. For days, no one dared to go near the forest where the light had fallen. The snow in that area had turned gray, and a faint hum could be heard even from far away. One morning, a local farmer decided to see what had happened. He walked deep into the frozen woods, following the strange vibration in the air. What he found stopped him in his tracks. Half buried in the snow was a massive object unlike anything he had ever seen. It wasn't made of rock or metal that he recognized. Its surface looked smooth like glass but shimmered like liquid. The object seemed alive, breathing softly as if it had a heartbeat. The farmer stepped closer and felt warmth coming from it, even though the air was freezing. There were no markings, no engines, and no sign of fire or damage, just a long curved shape, silent and mysterious. He ran back to the village to tell others. Within hours, the story spread. Soon after, black helicopters appeared in the sky. Military trucks arrived from nowhere, and the entire area was sealed off. The villagers were told to stay quiet and forget what they saw. Soldiers built a large metal fence around the site, and tents and research equipment started filling the snow-covered land. Whatever had fallen there was now in human hands, but no one outside that frozen zone would know about it. Days turned into weeks. Inside a temporary underground lab, scientists gathered around the object, trying to understand what it was. The closer they looked, the stranger it became. The material didn't match anything on Earth. When they cut off a small fragment to study, the surface healed itself within minutes. It emitted a low-frequency sound that seemed to change depending on who was near it. Some scientists claimed they could feel a presence as if the object was aware of them. It didn't take long before they realized this wasn't a meteor at all. It was a Starship. A real one. The ship was damaged, its main structure cracked open like a shell. Inside, they found large hollow chambers lined with unknown symbols glowing faintly blue. There were no bodies, no control panels, and no wires, just smooth surfaces and floating fragments of light that reacted to touch. When they tried to scan it with human technology, the systems either failed or gave unreadable data. It was as if the craft didn't want to be understood. At first, some believed it was an ancient alien relic, maybe thousands of years old. But others thought differently. They noticed the snow around it was still melting slightly, and the ground underneath was warm. The ship wasn't dead, it was sleeping. For months, experts from across the world were secretly flown to the hidden base. Engineers, physicists, and linguists, all were sworn to silence. They gave the object a code name, Project Genesis. Every day they tried to decode its patterns, its sounds, its structure. The deeper they went, the more impossible it seemed. The energy readings alone were beyond anything known to human science. Some thought the technology could power entire cities for centuries. Others feared it could also destroy them in seconds. Rumors spread among the workers that the ship sometimes moved slightly during the night. Some guards said they saw lights flicker along its surface, forming shapes like constellations. One engineer claimed he heard whispers through his headset while near the hull. But when others checked, there was nothing recorded. Despite all the strange events, the team continued working, driven by curiosity and ambition. They wanted answers. After several attempts, they managed to open a small section of the hull using a combination of heat and electromagnetic pulses. What they found inside shocked them. It wasn't empty. It was filled with floating spheres of light that rearranged themselves when humans entered. These lights projected images into the air, showing flashes of distant galaxies, giant ships, and something that looked like a battle. The scientists quickly realized these were not random pictures. They were memories stored in the ship's core. Each image told a story of a civilization far older than humanity. It showed planets covered in golden cities, creatures made of light and massive armadas crossing through space. Then the images turned darker, explosions, collapsing worlds, and strange metallic creatures attacking everything in sight. The last image showed a wounded ship breaking apart, then diving into a blue-green planet that looked exactly like Earth. That was the final moment before darkness. The scientists looked at each other in silence. The truth was now impossible to deny. The ship hadn't fallen by accident. It had escaped from a war. While governments argued behind closed doors about what to do next, the team continued their research. They noticed that the ship responded differently to different people. When someone approached with fear, its surface went dull. But when someone walked near it calmly, it glowed brighter. It was as if it could read emotions. Some began to believe that it wasn't just technology. It was alive in some way, connected to consciousness itself. One night, during a severe snowstorm, all the power in the research camp went out. Generators failed, lights flickered, and communication systems went silent. Then through the white haze, the entire ship began to shine. Its surface pulsed with light, creating patterns that rippled like waves. The wind stopped for a moment. Everyone watched in awe as a beam of soft blue light rose from the ship into the sky, splitting the clouds. The light spread across the horizon, visible for miles. Then just as suddenly it faded away. The next morning the power returned as if nothing had happened. But every electronic device in the base showed the same strange symbol on the screen, a circle with 3 points of light. No one knew what it meant. Some believed the ship had sent a signal into space, maybe calling for help. Others feared it had warned someone or something that humans had found it. Still, the higher authorities decided to continue. They moved the ship into a deeper underground facility to prevent public discovery. The project expanded, drawing more scientists, engineers, and resources from around the world. Every test revealed new wonders. The material of the ship could repair itself instantly. Its energy source never seemed to run out. And deep inside its structure, they discovered what appeared to be a command core, a sphere of crystal that emitted a soft hum when touched. When one of the scientists placed his hand on it, the hum changed tone and an image appeared before him, a holographic projection of the Earth from space. Around it floated hundreds of bright dots that looked like ships. Then the image zoomed out, showing stars and galaxies beyond imagination. It was a map. A star map that reached far beyond the limits of human knowledge. The scientists stepped back, speechless. The others recorded every second of it. That moment confirmed what everyone secretly hoped. The ship had come from another part of the universe. It was proof that humanity was not alone. But deep down, a quiet question began to form among the researchers. If this ship had crashed here, where were the ones who built it? Were they gone? Or were they coming back? Outside, winter slowly faded into spring. The forest around the site grew quiet again, as if nature itself was keeping the secret. Only a few knew what slept beneath the frozen ground, a machine from another world, waiting for something. And though none of them realized it yet, this discovery would change not just science or history, but the entire future of humanity, because hidden inside that damaged starship was more than alien technology. It held the key to power that no one on Earth could yet imagine. And once that power awakened, the whole universe would notice. After the discovery of the strange ship, the world above carried on as usual, but deep beneath the frozen land, something extraordinary was unfolding. The underground base built around the mysterious object had grown larger. More scientists had joined the project, each bringing their own tools, ideas, and questions. No one outside the hidden facility knew the truth. That the most powerful creation ever found on Earth was lying just a few meters below their feet. The ship stood silent in the middle of a huge chamber, glowing faintly with that same soft blue light. Every day, the research teams ran new experiments. They placed scanners, built models, and tried to understand how it worked. But no matter how advanced their equipment was, the results always came back impossible. The materials of the ship could not be cut, melted, or analyzed by any human technology. Its surface changed temperature without any reason, and sometimes it even released tiny flashes of light, like sparks from another dimension. The project leaders decided to divide the study into 3 main parts: energy, structure, and intelligence. Each team worked separately, hoping to unlock at least one secret. The energy team tried to measure the power inside the craft, but every time they connected their machines, the readings went off the charts. It was clear that the ship was running on something far beyond nuclear or solar power, something completely unknown. Meanwhile, the structure team discovered that the ship's walls weren't solid metal at all. They were made of billions of microscopic particles that could move and rearrange themselves. The more they studied it, the more it looked like the ship was rebuilding itself slowly, as if it remembered its original form. Some scientists began calling it a living machine, but the most mysterious part was the intelligence system. The team working on that believed the ship had a mind, maybe not like a human mind, but something deeper. Whenever people came too close, the ship reacted differently. It changed its glow, emitted faint sounds, and sometimes even displayed patterns that matched brainwave signals of those standing near it. It was almost as if it could sense emotions. One evening, as the teams prepared for another long night of experiments, something strange happened. A soft vibration spread through the floor, followed by a low humming sound that filled the whole chamber. Everyone froze. The ship's blue lights brightened, then dimmed again. The power in the facility flickered. Computers shut down and the main monitors turned black. For a moment there was silence, only the soft heartbeat-like pulse of the alien ship. Then, lines of symbols appeared on one of the main screens, symbols no one could read. They weren't any known language. The shapes looked curved and connected, almost alive, moving slowly across the screen before fading away. The scientists stood in silence, realizing that the ship had just communicated for the first time. From that night onward, everything changed. The team's mission was no longer just to study the ship, it was to learn from it. They began sending light and sound signals into the ship, hoping for a response. At first, there was none. Then, after weeks of trying, the ship started replying with faint flashes of light that seemed to follow patterns. The communication was primitive, but it was real. Using advanced decoding systems, the scientists began to understand a small part of what the ship was trying to say. It wasn't words exactly, it was images. The ship projected short holographic sequences into the air. Planets, stars, and what looked like fragments of memory. The images showed beings made of light and energy walking through large silver halls. Then came images of fire, explosions, and darkness. The team realized these were not random pictures. They were fragments of the ship's own past. One of the scientists proposed a bold idea. If they could fully reactivate the ship, they might be able to access its entire memory, including the technology it carried. The leaders hesitated at first. No one knew what would happen if they woke up something that wasn't meant to be touched. But the promise of progress was too great. The world above was facing endless challenges. Energy shortages, climate problems, and wars. Maybe this discovery could change everything. The decision was made. They would try to bring the ship back to life. Over the next several months, the underground base transformed into a high-tech laboratory. Giant energy coils surrounded the ship, and quantum processors were installed to handle the data exchange. Every movement, every pulse from the ship was recorded and analyzed. When they started transmitting human frequencies, brain signals, heart rhythms, even spoken words, the ship began to respond in more complex ways. It emitted new tones and patterns of light that followed a rhythm almost like language. It was during one of these sessions that the impossible happened. The ship activated a section of its outer surface, forming an opening that led inside. The inner chamber was smooth, covered in flowing symbols that moved like liquid across the walls. In the center floated a crystal-like core that pulsed softly. The energy coming from it felt warm, almost comforting. When the scientists approached it, the lights in the room changed color, from blue to white, then to gold. The air filled with a low, steady vibration. They realized the ship was scanning them, trying to understand who they were. Then, without warning, the core projected a large hologram in the air above it. It showed Earth from space. Then it zoomed out, revealing hundreds of stars, galaxies, and paths marked in glowing lines. Everyone watched in awe. The projection showed the Milky Way, then kept expanding until the human eye could barely follow the movement. Somewhere far away, a red symbol began to flash repeatedly. It was clear that the ship was pointing towards something, or someone. The scientists didn't understand the full message, but they sensed it wasn't just random. The ship was remembering its home, or its enemies. Word about the discovery started spreading quietly among world leaders. The news of an active alien craft capable of communication caused panic behind closed doors. Some wanted to shut down the project, fearing it could attract danger. Others believed it was humanity's greatest opportunity to advance. After days of arguments, a decision was made to continue the research, but under strict global supervision. Every nation wanted a piece of the discovery, and soon the once secret base became the most guarded location on the planet. Despite the pressure, the team continued their work. They discovered that the ship's core contained thousands of layers of information, stored in light pulses. It wasn't just a machine, it was a library of an entire civilization. The deeper they went, the more they learned about the beings who built it. They weren't like humans, but their intelligence and emotions were surprisingly familiar. The recordings showed their cities, families, and hopes. They had built the ship not only for travel, but also for survival. It was designed to protect life, to shield and preserve knowledge. But the images also showed their greatest fear. The final recordings revealed giant dark structures floating through space, machines shaped like claws, swallowing entire planets. The aliens had called them harvesters. They consumed everything, leaving only silence behind. The ship that crashed on Earth had escaped from that destruction. Its mission had been to hide, repair itself, and wait for the right time to rise again. As this truth unfolded, the scientists began to realize the meaning of the first signal the ship had sent into the sky months ago. It wasn't a call for help. It was a warning, a message meant for others saying it had survived. That message might already have been heard. Late one night, while reviewing the data from the ship's core, a technician noticed something terrifying. A small frequency had begun repeating inside the system, one that hadn't appeared before. It was faint but steady, a signal from deep space. No human satellite had sent it. It wasn't part of the ship's usual energy pattern either. It was something new, something coming from far away. They played the signal through the speakers. It was only a soft rhythm at first, like a heartbeat. Then it grew louder and sharper, echoing through the entire chamber. The ship's lights flickered in response. It recognized the sound. The scientists stared in silence. Whatever the signal was, it wasn't random. Someone or something was answering. And at that moment, they understood what the ship had been preparing for all along. It hadn't just been resting. It had been waiting. Because somewhere in the dark ocean of stars, the same force that once destroyed its creators had just noticed that their lost vessel was alive again, on a small blue planet called Earth. The humans didn't realize it yet, but by bringing the ship back to life, they had awakened the attention of something far greater than they could imagine. The countdown to the next chapter of human history had quietly begun. Months had passed since the ship had been reactivated. The underground base had grown even larger now, stretching deep beneath the frozen ground. New halls, labs, and control rooms were added every week. Hundreds of scientists, engineers, and specialists from different countries worked side by side, all trying to understand the strange power that slept inside the alien craft. But as time went on, the ship began to behave differently. It no longer stayed silent for days as it once did. Now it pulsed softly every night, sending out patterns of light across its surface like it was breathing. The people who worked near it said they could feel a faint hum inside their chest whenever they got too close. Some said it felt alive, like a heartbeat that responded to their presence. At first they thought it was reacting to energy waves from the machines in the lab. But when all the power was turned off for testing, the ship continued to pulse in the same rhythm. That's when they realized it was responding to them. The team started observing the lights carefully, recording every flicker. They noticed the brightness changed depending on who stood near it. When people were calm and curious, the glow became gentle and warm. When they argued or felt anxious, the light dimmed and turned cold. The ship seemed to sense emotions as if it could understand what humans were feeling. One night, a young technician stayed behind after everyone had gone to rest. He sat quietly beside the ship, staring at its shining walls. He spoke softly, not expecting any reply, just sharing his thoughts about how small humans were compared to the universe. To his shock, the ship responded with a faint tone, almost like a melody. It wasn't loud or clear, but it carried emotion, like a distant echo of understanding. The next morning, the entire team gathered to hear the recording. The tone repeated several times, and each time it followed the pattern of the technician's voice. It wasn't random. It was communication. That discovery changed everything. The scientists now knew the ship could hear, and in some strange way it could even understand. They began talking to it daily, using sound frequencies and simple words. At first, the ship replied with light patterns. Later, it started creating images in the air again. Only this time, the images were sharper. It showed a world with two suns, filled with blue oceans and silver mountains. Then it showed a fleet of shining ships flying through the stars. The people in the holograms looked tall, graceful, made of light instead of flesh. They moved with purpose and calmness. Then the images darkened. The same world was now under attack. Giant shadows moved across the sky, and everything was swallowed in a wave of darkness. The projection faded before anyone could capture the last frame. No one spoke for a long time. They knew what they had seen wasn't fiction. It was the ship's memory. Over the next weeks, the research team started connecting pieces together. The ship wasn't just an alien vehicle. It was part of a lost civilization destroyed by something that hunted across galaxies. The ship had crashed on Earth, maybe as a last hope of survival, carrying the memories of its creators. And now, by reactivating it, humans had brought those memories and maybe that danger back into motion. Still, curiosity and ambition were stronger than fear. The scientists wanted to learn more. They started testing how much of the ship could be controlled by human technology. Slowly, they connected human-made systems to the alien ones. To their surprise, the ship accepted the connections easily, as if it was learning to understand Earth's machines. Soon, it began powering devices in the lab directly from its own energy. The lights flickered whenever it sent power out. Generators were shut down. The ship didn't need electricity. It produced energy by itself, endless and clean. When they measured it, they found it could power entire cities for decades. Humanity had just touched a limitless power source. Word about this achievement quietly reached the outside world. Governments started sending their own representatives, each wanting access to the new discovery. The project was no longer just science, it was becoming politics. The base was divided into zones controlled by different nations. Some wanted to use the technology for energy, others saw it as the ultimate weapon. Inside the base, tensions started to grow. The original scientists wanted to keep the ship safe, but the new military teams wanted to test its strength. They built new structures around it, installing missile detectors, shields, and secret weapons. The simple mission to understand the ship was slowly turning into a race to own it. But while humans argued, the ship itself continued to evolve. It began forming new shapes along its surface, lines that looked like veins of light spreading outward. The symbols that once glowed softly now changed every few hours, rewriting themselves like living language. The scientists tried to decode them, but each time they got close, the patterns changed again. One morning, the team woke to alarms echoing through the base. The temperature had dropped suddenly and all power systems were offline again. The ship glowed brighter than ever before, lighting up the entire underground chamber like daylight. It projected a series of fast-moving images on the walls, stars, planets, then finally Earth. The projection zoomed closer until it focused on one point in space just beyond Earth's orbit. Then it stopped. The scientists stared in silence. It was trying to show something. They enhanced the coordinates and what they found made their hearts pound. A faint signal, one that matched the same frequency detected months ago, was approaching Earth. They ran tests again and again, but the results didn't change. Something was coming. Something huge. The project leaders called an emergency meeting. Some believed it was just a cosmic coincidence, maybe an asteroid. But others feared the truth. The ship had sent out a signal months ago, and now something had heard it and was coming to find it. Days turned into weeks as the signal grew stronger. The world above still had no idea what was happening below the ice. Only a small group of officials knew that Earth might soon face something not of this world. In preparation, they began secretly constructing a defense plan. They called it Operation Guardian. The goal was to study the ship's weapons, if it had any, and find a way to activate them for protection. But the ship didn't act hostile. It remained calm, glowing softly as if it already knew what was happening. Sometimes when people worked near it, it projected peaceful scenes, forests, oceans, and stars, like it was trying to tell them not to be afraid. It almost seemed protective, as if it understood that humans were now its caretakers. In those quiet moments, some scientists even began to feel a bond with it. They no longer saw it as alien technology, but as a part of something greater. something that had chosen to rest on Earth for a reason. Maybe it saw something in humanity that reminded it of its lost creators, but the peace didn't last long. One night, as the northern lights danced across the sky, the ship suddenly sent out another beam of light straight upward. It was much brighter than before, cutting through the ice and clouds, visible even from space. It lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough. Every satellite around Earth detected the flash. Every observatory recorded the same thing, a pulse strong enough to reach across the stars. The scientists couldn't stop it. The ship had sent another message. When the light faded, silence filled the base. The monitors showed strange readings, signals bouncing back from deep space. They weren't human. Someone or something had answered. No one spoke, but everyone understood what it meant. The ship was no longer just an Earth secret. The universe now knew where it was. That night, many couldn't sleep. Some sat quietly, wondering what kind of beings might be coming. Were they the same ones who built the ship, or the ones who destroyed them? No one had the answer. Yet despite the fear, a strange sense of destiny filled the hearts of those who had been part of the project since the beginning. They felt that humanity was standing on the edge of something enormous, something that could either save them or change them forever. The ship continued to glow softly through the long night, as if watching over them. The hum in the air grew stronger, almost comforting. It was preparing for something, and deep inside its core, the same golden lights began to swirl again, faster this time, like a heart beating before awakening. The humans didn't know it yet, but they had already crossed the line between discovery and destiny. What had started as a mystery buried in ice was now becoming the beginning of a story that would decide the future of Earth itself. The stars above seemed to wait silently, as if holding their breath. Something had been set in motion, something that could not be undone. And somewhere far away in the dark sea of space, an old enemy had finally heard the echo of the ship that got away. The countdown to first contact had begun. The news of the hidden alien ship spread quietly among a small group of scientists and engineers who were trusted enough to keep it secret. They worked day and night inside the underground facility, trying to understand how the Starship worked. But every time they thought they were getting closer, the ship would react strangely, almost as if it didn't want to be touched. Machines would fail near it. Lights would flicker, and sometimes the air itself would vibrate with a deep, low hum that felt alive. It wasn't just technology, it was something beyond human imagination. Among the group, one young engineer stood out. He wasn't the most experienced, but he had a rare way of looking at problems differently. While others tried to control the alien systems with brute logic, he treated the ship as if it had emotions, like it was a living being that needed trust. He spent hours sitting quietly inside the glowing cockpit, speaking softly to the ship, as though it could understand him. The others laughed at him, but one night something incredible happened. As he sat in silence, the control panels slowly lit up one by one. The air shimmered with soft blue light, and the symbols on the dashboard began to shift into forms that looked almost like human letters. The ship was responding to him. Everyone rushed inside, stunned by what they saw. For the first time since it crashed, the alien starship had awakened. That night, the facility buzzed with excitement and fear. No one knew what would happen next. The energy readings shot off the charts, and strange signals started bouncing off satellites in orbit. Governments were alerted and security tightened. But deep inside, the young engineer felt something else. A connection. A voice in his mind whispering in a language he couldn't fully understand. Over the next few days, the ship began revealing its secrets. Holographic images floated around the cockpit, showing star maps, strange creatures, and massive space battles fought across galaxies. It was like opening a window into the universe's history. They learned that the ship belonged to a powerful alien race that had once ruled thousands of worlds. But something went wrong. A war broke out among the stars, and this ship, badly damaged, had fled and ended up crashing on Earth thousands of years ago. Piece by piece, the team realized they weren't just studying an alien ship. They were standing inside a weapon, one so powerful it could tear holes in space itself. The discovery terrified them. The ship carried a kind of energy that could rewrite reality, and if handled wrong, it could destroy the planet in seconds. The young engineer begged his superiors not to rush. He felt the ship was testing them, judging if humanity was ready to understand its power. But power always attracts greed. Hidden forces, shadowy agencies, and wealthy elites got involved. They saw the ship as a tool to control the world. Secret orders came down to move faster, to unlock the weapon systems no matter the risk. The scientists were divided. Some wanted to continue peaceful research, while others believed Earth needed this power to defend itself from whatever else was out there. One stormy night, everything changed. A military convoy arrived unexpectedly at the facility. The sound of engines and boots echoed through the underground halls. The scientists were ordered to step aside as soldiers surrounded the Starship. The engineer tried to stop them, shouting that the ship wasn't ready, that it was alive. But his words fell on deaf ears. The commanders gave the order to power it up. The moment they forced the ship's core online, alarms screamed through the base. The lights dimmed, the air thickened, and the floor trembled. The ship reacted violently as if defending itself. Bolts of blue energy shot out, knocking soldiers to the ground. Screens exploded, and the air filled with a strange metallic taste. Then everything went silent. The ship began to glow with a deep, pulsating light, and a voice echoed in their minds, calm, ancient, and powerful. It wasn't speaking in words, but they all understood. You are not ready. The power cut off instantly, plunging the entire base into darkness. For several minutes, no one moved. Then the engineer walked slowly to the ship, placing his hand on its surface. It felt warm, alive, and it pulsed gently under his touch. He whispered quietly, promising that they would not harm it again. The lights flickered softly in response, like a heartbeat calming down. In the days that followed, the government tried to cover up what happened. Many of the soldiers were removed, and the scientists were told to continue under strict control. But the young engineer knew something bigger was coming. He had begun to understand fragments of the Starship's message, warnings about an ancient enemy still wandering the stars, searching for what they lost. The ship hadn't just fallen to Earth by accident. It had been hiding here, waiting for something, or someone to awaken it. The engineer believed that maybe, just maybe, Earth had been chosen for a reason. He started working secretly at night, guided by the visions that the ship sent into his dreams. He saw glimpses of distant worlds, dying suns, and fleets of alien warships gathering in deep space. The ship was trying to show him the future, or perhaps a warning of what was to come. As months passed, small changes began to appear. Strange energy waves spread across the planet, too faint for most to notice but powerful enough to disturb magnetic fields. Birds began migrating oddly, compasses spun unpredictably, and strange lights appeared in the sky. The world didn't know it yet, but the reawakening of the alien ship had set something in motion that couldn't be undone. The young engineer could feel it too, the growing hum of the universe, the vibration of something vast moving toward Earth. The ship seemed restless, almost anxious, as if preparing for a coming storm. He didn't know what form it would take, but deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The weapon buried beneath their feet wasn't just a machine. It was part of something much greater, a relic of a war that had never truly ended. And now, after thousands of years of silence, the universe was beginning to remember where it had fallen. Weeks passed after the night the alien ship came alive, but nothing felt the same anymore. Everyone inside the underground facility could sense that the world had quietly shifted. The ship was no longer silent. It seemed to breathe with a faint vibration that could be felt through the walls. The air around it had a strange pulse, like the rhythm of a heartbeat. The young engineer who had first connected with it spent more and more time inside the glowing chamber, feeling both drawn to it and burdened by the weight of what he now knew. The others watched him closely. Some respected his quiet confidence. Others feared what he might be hiding. He had begun speaking about things no one else understood, about patterns in the ship's light that showed messages, about a cosmic language that wasn't made of words but of emotions, shapes, and sound. He tried to explain it simply. The ship didn't talk like humans. It felt. It shared memories through light and rhythm. When it trusted you, it opened its heart. But not everyone believed him. The officials who controlled the project only cared about one thing: unlocking the ship's full power. They didn't care how dangerous it might be. They had already seen how the ship reacted during the failed activation, and they believed it could be weaponized if someone just found the right control code. The engineer tried to warn them. He told them that the ship wasn't meant for destruction. It was a traveler, a protector, and forcing it to fight would only bring harm. But his warnings were ignored. Late one night, when he returned to the lab, he found a new team of technicians working under armed guards. They were installing cables, heavy devices, and strange energy amplifiers all around the ship. When he asked what they were doing, no one answered. But the look in their eyes said enough. They were preparing to activate it again, this time not for study but for control. That night, as thunder rolled above the surface and rain fell hard against the mountains, the engineer made a choice that would change everything. He couldn't allow them to misuse the ship. He slipped into the control room quietly and accessed the system. He had learned enough about the ship's energy pulse to communicate with it through sound frequencies. With trembling hands, he sent out a signal, not a command, but a question. "Do you trust me?" For a long moment, nothing happened. The facility remained silent except for the distant hum of generators. Then slowly, a soft blue light spread through the ship's surface, glowing like calm water under the moon. It was the ship's way of saying yes. The engineer began transferring encrypted files, trying to lock out the military access codes. But before he could finish, the alarm started blaring. Guards rushed in, shouting orders. The entire facility filled with red light as warning sirens echoed off the walls. He was dragged away from the console, but not before pressing one last key, a safeguard that prevented anyone from powering up the ship without his permission. The officers were furious. He was locked in an isolated chamber, and the scientists were told to continue without him. But the ship reacted again. The lights flickered, the floor shook, and then everything went dark. When the emergency lights came on, every digital system in the facility had gone offline. The alien ship had shut them out completely. Days later, a quiet calm settled over the base. The military teams left one by one, leaving only a few scientists behind. The higher-ups called it a temporary suspension, but everyone knew what it really meant. They had lost control. The engineer was finally released. He went straight to the chamber where the ship rested, untouched and silent again. When he placed his hand on its cold surface, the familiar hum returned. This time, the energy felt different, softer, almost comforting. He closed his eyes and saw visions flashing behind them, vast galaxies, dying suns, and a giant shadow moving slowly through the stars. The ship was trying to tell him something. A danger was coming, something ancient, something that had been searching for the ship ever since it vanished from its home world. He saw flashes of massive alien fleets traveling across the dark void, their ships shaped like blades of light, their purpose singular, to find what was lost. They had destroyed worlds in their search. And now they had found a signal, Earth's signal. The engineer woke up trembling. Sweat covered his face and his heart pounded in fear. He knew what he had to do. The ship needed to be hidden again, before it drew attention to itself. He gathered the few scientists who still believed in his words and told them everything. Some were terrified, others were determined. Together they began planning how to move the ship somewhere it couldn't be easily found. But the ship had a different idea. Late one evening, when the engineer stood inside the glowing chamber, the panels around him began to shift. The structure reconfigured itself, and suddenly, the entire room was bathed in a silver-blue light. Holographic lines spread around him, forming a map of space. And at the center of that map was Earth. Around it, countless red dots were approaching. It wasn't a vision this time. It was real-time data. The enemy fleet was on its way. The engineer felt the weight of the truth hit him like a storm. They had only weeks, maybe days, before the aliens arrived. Earth had no defense strong enough to survive. The ship was the only thing that could stand against them. But it wasn't ready, not fully repaired, not fully understood. He fell to his knees, whispering, "What do I do?" The ship's lights dimmed, then brightened again, focusing on him. It was as if it was choosing him, not as its controller, but as its partner. He knew what it meant. The ship was offering him a chance to merge, to connect mind and machine so deeply that he could guide it as if it were his own body. It was a dangerous step. No human had ever merged with alien technology like this before. It could kill him, or worse, change him completely. He stood there, trembling, torn between fear and duty. He thought about his people, his planet, and the quiet blue sky that would vanish if he failed. Then he made his choice. He placed both hands on the glowing console, and the ship responded instantly. Light wrapped around him like a cocoon, lifting him off the ground. He gasped as memories, not his own, near him flooded into his mind. He saw the alien creators of the ship, noble and wise, building it not as a weapon but as a guardian. He saw the war that destroyed their worlds, and he saw their final act, sending the ship away with one command: find those who will protect life, not destroy it. When the light faded, the engineer stood still, breathing heavily. His eyes glowed faintly with a blue shimmer. The ship's systems hummed softly around him, calm and alive. He wasn't sure if he was still fully human anymore, but he knew he wasn't alone. The ship and he had become one. As the night stretched on, the sky above the mountains flickered with faint streaks of light, meteors or perhaps something more. The engineer looked upward through the facility's open hatch, feeling the world tremble under the first signs of what was coming. Far above the clouds in the darkness of space, something vast and terrible was drawing closer. Ships that burned like stars, moving silently toward Earth. The battle for the planet hadn't begun yet. But everyone who had touched that alien ship, everyone who had seen its light knew the truth deep inside. The universe was coming back for what it had lost. And now, only one man, and one living starship, stood between Earth and the storm that was about to fall. The night was unusually silent. The mountains around the secret facility stood still under a dark sky filled with heavy clouds. Inside the underground chamber, the alien ship glowed faintly, casting soft blue light across the walls. The young engineer stood before it, no longer just a man, but something more. The ship's energy pulsed through his veins, connecting his mind to the vastness of space. He could see things others couldn't. Stars being born, galaxies spinning, and distant fleets moving closer to Earth. He took a deep breath. His body felt heavier, his heart slower, but his mind sharper than ever before. The ship's memories whispered within him. Warnings, codes, strategies. It told him that the approaching fleet was not simply searching, it was hunting. The beings who once owned the ship had been destroyed by their own creation, an empire that turned technology into tyranny. And now those same creatures were coming to Earth to reclaim what they had lost, their ultimate weapon. The engineer didn't want to fight. He wasn't a soldier, just a man who wanted to understand the unknown. But now the survival of billions depended on him. He knew he couldn't hide anymore. The ship's light grew brighter, almost sensing his determination. It was time. Over the next few days, he and the remaining scientists worked non-stop. They prepared the ship for flight, sealing cracks, realigning damaged systems, and stabilizing its core. Every touch, every movement felt guided, like the ship itself was teaching them what to do. There were moments when the lights flickered, forming patterns that looked like instructions, and the engineer translated them with uncanny ease. When the ship finally powered up completely, the entire mountain trembled. A blinding beam of light shot into the sky, piercing through the clouds. Satellites across orbit detected the signal instantly, and within minutes the world's governments knew something extraordinary was happening. People around the globe looked up that night, seeing the same beam glowing faintly in the distance. News channels broke stories about strange activity. Scientists guessed it was an asteroid or a comet, but no one truly knew. The engineer, deep inside the cockpit, could feel the eyes of the universe turning toward him. And far beyond the stars, the enemy fleet changed course. They had found Earth. The next morning, as the world woke to strange electromagnetic waves disrupting communication, the first alien signatures appeared in the sky, silent shapes moving at impossible speeds hidden behind the clouds. The engineer and his team watched through the monitoring systems as energy readings spiked. They were here. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the ship's hum merge with his heartbeat. He whispered softly, "Let's protect them." The floor vibrated as the alien ship began to rise, breaking free from the rocks and steel that had held it buried for centuries. Dust and debris swirled as the massive craft lifted into the open air. For a moment, it hovered silently over the mountains, glowing brighter than the moon. Then, with a soft pulse, it vanished, disappearing into the clouds at incredible speed. High above the Earth, the ship's systems awakened completely. The cockpit around him shimmered with light, showing thousands of red dots, enemy crafts closing in. They were massive, shaped like blades moving in formation. The engineer could feel the ship's awareness spread through him, filling his thoughts with clarity and calm. He didn't need to control it anymore. They moved as one. The first attack came without warning. Beams of red energy streaked through the sky, tearing through the upper atmosphere. The ship dodged instinctively, spinning and weaving through the explosions. The engineer's hands hovered over the controls, glowing faintly with the same blue light as the ship. He could sense the enemy's moves before they made them, almost like the universe itself was guiding him. The battle above Earth was unlike anything human eyes had ever seen. Clouds lit up in colors that didn't exist in nature. Lightning danced between alien crafts as shockwaves rippled through the sky. The ship fought with both elegance and fury, sending arcs of blue energy that folded space itself. Each blast tore through enemy vessels, scattering fragments that burned like stars before fading into nothing. But the enemy was vast and endless waves kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 10 more appeared. The engineer could feel the strain, and not in his body, but in his mind. The ship shared his pain, pulsing harder, its energy core glowing dangerously bright. He could hear the whispers of its ancient creators echoing in his mind. Protect life no matter the cost. Then, in the middle of chaos, the largest enemy craft appeared. It was gigantic, casting a shadow over the earth below. Its structure looked like a floating city, surrounded by dark energy fields. The engineer felt a chill. This was the command ship in the heart of the invasion. The alien leader's voice rang through his mind, deep and cold, not made of words but emotion. Return what is ours, or your world will burn. The engineer gritted his teeth. He didn't answer with words. Instead, he and the ship became one pulse of light, shooting forward like a comet. The collision shook the sky. The alien mothership released a blast of red energy so powerful that it split clouds apart for hundreds of miles. But the alien ship, the one the humans had rebuilt, absorbed it. The engineer's body felt like it was burning, but he didn't stop. He pushed harder, channeling the ship's energy into one final surge. The alien ship's blue core blazed like a star, brighter and brighter until it was almost blinding. He whispered softly, "For Earth." In that moment, the ship unleashed its true power. Not a weapon, but a burst of pure creation energy. It wasn't meant to destroy. It was meant to reset. The explosion wasn't fire or light, but silence, a wave of calm that spread across the sky. The enemy fleet dissolved into dust. Their energy turned to harmless light. The mothership cracked apart slowly, its fragments burning in the atmosphere like falling stars. When the light faded, the night was peaceful again. People across the world looked up, seeing thousands of glowing trails falling gently like rain. They didn't know it, but they were watching the remains of the greatest battle in human history. High above, the alien ship floated silently, its surface cracked and dim. The engineer sat inside, weak but alive. The ship spoke to him one last time through feeling, not words, a goodbye. It had given everything to save the planet. Its systems began to shut down one by one, fading like a heartbeat slowing down. The engineer placed his hand on the console and whispered, "Thank you." He guided the ship gently back toward Earth. It descended slowly, glowing softly as it entered the atmosphere. Over the mountains, it landed in the same valley where it had first been found. The ground shook slightly as it settled, half buried once again, a silent guardian returning to rest. When rescue teams arrived days later, they found the engineer sitting near the ship, unconscious but breathing. His eyes glowed faintly for a moment before closing. They took him to safety, but when he woke up, he couldn't remember everything. The connection was gone. The ship's systems were completely offline, its light extinguished. The government sealed the valley again, declaring it a restricted zone. Officially, nothing ever happened. But those who saw the sky that night, those who witnessed the lights and the falling stars, never forgot. Years passed and the world slowly moved on, but strange things began to happen around the mountain. At night, people said they saw soft blue light under the rocks, pulsing like a quiet heartbeat. Some believed it was the earth breathing again. Others whispered that the guardian still slept beneath the ground, waiting for the day it would be needed once more. And somewhere deep in his dreams, the engineer could still feel the hum, faint but steady, as if the ship was whispering from far away. "We are not gone. We are only waiting." He would wake up each morning, step outside, and look toward the mountains. The world was peaceful now, but he knew peace never lasted forever. The universe was vast, and out there among the stars, countless eyes were still watching. But for now, Earth was safe, and that was enough. The alien ship, once abandoned, once feared, had become humanity's greatest protector, not by destruction but by understanding, unity, and courage. And though it now slept under the soil of a quiet world, its story lived on, whispered through the wind, carried by those who believed that even in the darkest parts of the universe, there was still hope, and a reason to fight for it.